Hello everyone and thank you for being here. I have the first significant update since Flared2 was released. We are introducing version 066051, which includes some exciting new features. Let's dive right in. I'll add a flare to the light in the scene. Okay, all good. I still have the camera selected and haven't deselected it yet. You can see it's still highlighted. I need to deselect it. Now I can add the flare. The add-on rightly prevents adding a flare to the camera itself because that could cause issues. First new feature, you can now rotate the starburst and set it to any angle you like. Previously, it had a fixed tilt, which was somewhat limiting. Now you can position it however you prefer, which is great improvement. Additionally, no matter which star shape you choose, the starburst can rotate freely. Second new feature. This one was requested by someone among you. Apologize, I can't recall the name, but I believe the request was in the Blender Market chat. If I manage to track it down, I will include in the credits below the video. Those who suggested it will know. The feature allows you to isolate specific elements of the flare while editing, making it easier to focus on and refine individual components. For example, if you want to edit only the sunbeams, I can use a button to display just the sunbeam and hide everything else. Once I'm done, I click the button again to restore the full flare. However, keep in mind that if you leave the solo option active and render the scene, only the visible elements will be rendered. If you use solo or multiple elements, only those specific elements will appear. And now, all panels support these features. If you're not sure what a streak is, you can isolate it in solo mode to understand. It's the blue line and its reflection, which you can adjust by modifying the intensity to decide whether to display it or not. For the main streak, you can adjust width, height, random details, brightness, and other options. The random details change dynamically as you move through the scene. Turning off solo restores the full flare. The same applies to the ghosts. Here you can see the isolated ghosts. Thank you to whoever suggested this functionality. It's incredibly useful. The same logic applies to lens dirt. You can now view it in isolation. A note on lens dirt. As explained in the manual, though not elaborated on in detail, lens dirt consists of two components. Dirt includes dirt range, dirt brightness, and dirt map scale. The range determines the area of effect, which you can see as it spreads around light, brightness, or changes in scale. Dirt leaks brightness. This simulates like bleeding into the camera from an angle. You can choose to enable or disable it. It's particularly noticeable when the light source is perpendicular lateral to the camera. Turning off solo for dirt restores the full view. Let us know if this feature improves your workflow, whether it's helpful or is there's room for improvement. Another cool feature. I remove this flare and take a moment to compose the scene. Now I want to create a series of flares lined up. For this object, I'll add a simple lens flare, perhaps a red one, and apply some effects. There's a minor issue. Since Blender version 4.23, I've noticed glitch during Python operations. It seemed like a harmless visualization bug, but don't worry if you encounter it too. Now we have multiple flares in the scene. Let's link them. If we want to modify all flares simultaneously, linking makes it easier. Let's return to the camera and examine the results. Currently, the flares don't account for depth. They are all the same size because they are in 2D. I disable the 2D mode and update the panel so that all flares switch to 3D. Now, the closer flare is brighter and produces more pronounced ghost effects, while the farther flare appears smaller. We noticed a decay in the size of the flare that didn't feel quite right. After investigating, we found that the multiple mathematical formulas were overlapping in the way the flare size was reduced. To address this, we retained the mode you're all familiar with, ensuring backward compatibility with scenes you're already working on. A note about backward compatibility. Keep in mind that flares created with older version of the add-on will still be editable in newer version. However, they won't include access to the new features. For instance, older flare won't have the rotation feature, which is available only for flares created from now onward. If you're working with an older flare, I recommend saving it, removing it from the scene, importing it back in, and reintegrating it using a new version of the add-on. I'll demonstrate the exact process in a second moment, as we've introduced a new improvement here as well. Returning to decay behavior, we now have a global decay factor that controls the curve, affecting how the size changes with distance from the camera. This function is only available in 3D mode. You'll notice that adjusting the value for one flare has no effect until you update all flares. Once updated, you will see that in the previous mode, nearby flares were very bright, while distant ones dimmed too quickly. This felt unrealistic. The current mode allows for a more linear decay control, with all options between 0 and 1 functioning correctly. The previous mode used a steep curve, while the new one adopts a more linear behavior, which more closely resembles how light behaves in reality. You may notice the difference. Let me compare these again. This is how it used to look, and this is how it looks now. You can choose intermediate settings to achieve a stronger or softer decay effect based on distance. Simplifying the scene. Now, I'll clean up the scene by removing some flares. We don't need them all. I leave only 3 flares and delete the rest by selecting them and using the Delete Selected option. This removes all flare with the white arrow indicator. By the way, there's still a strange behavior in Python during these calculations. I don't know. It seems harmless, and we'll likely resolve it later. New function, naming the flares. With just 3 flares left in the scene, I'll introduce another important new feature. When importing a flare into the scene, you see the preset name being used. Previously, it wasn't possible to assign specific names to individual flares in the scene, which could be confusing when working with multiple flares. Now, you can assign a custom name to each flare, making it easier to identify them in the scene. This is purely for organizational purposes. For example, if you're working on a car scene, you can name one flare rear light and another headlight. Personally, I found this very helpful when working on complex scenes, as it prevents me from getting lost among multiple flares. Anyway, remember that this name doesn't affect the flare. It's just a name that you can use into the scene. Another noteworthy improvement, thanks to whoever suggested this, is the preset selection panel. Here we are in the Flared2 window, specifically the preset selection section. This panel now allows you to sort presets alphabetically. If you remember a specific name, you can easily search for it. However, I occasionally encounter some missing previous image, which we're still working to fix. We've overcome big challenge, so I'm confident we will resolve this too. You can also switch back to the previous preset selection interface from the add-on preferences. While I find the new mode more convenient for handling many presets, the old mode provides a quicker overview for those who prefer it. Both options are intuitive and easy to toggle between. Now, let me show you how to export flares. I don't think we've ever demonstrated this in any previous tutorial, but it's a feature that's been recently requested. This functionality existed in the earlier version of Flared2, but we've refined it because there were some bugs. I'll delete to Flare now. I no longer need by selecting them and click delete selected. Now I'll keep just one flare in the scene and I customize it to create my own version, a design that I like, that I intend to reuse in other projects. Okay, this flare is far from pretty, but we love it anyway. First, I need to define a custom working folder, known as the custom folder. By default, there's a folder containing a base preset, but you can set up your custom folder in the same way. Click here, select custom, and then choose a location. For example, I'll create a new folder in my downloads directory called custom folder. You can name it whatever you like, it doesn't matter. Once the folder is created, you'll select it and click accept. Now, the path to the custom folder is set, but since the folder is empty, no flares are visible. If the folder had content, you would see those flares listed. Exporting a custom flare. Flared2 now knows where to save custom flares. To export, go to Export Active Flare as a custom preset. This will export the currently active flare. The system will ask you to name the preset. I will call this one New Ben. Once I confirm, I need to wait a bit, typically 15, 20 or 30 seconds. During this time, the system generates an icon for your flare, matching the exact positioning and style of the other icons in the library. This is incredibly convenient because it automates the process of creating consistent icons with the same angle, background, and other details. The process is a bit slow right now, but we've been testing from version 4.1.1 onwards to maintain backward compatibility. In version 4.1.1, these operations were significantly faster. Here, things are slowing down a bit, and we'll investigate whether any code adjustments are needed. In any case, once the process is complete, if you go to the custom sections, you'll see the new flare icon. It's been captured exactly like the others, and it now appears in the list. You can select it and reuse in any time from your custom folder. Now I'll replace this flare with another. Perfect. I'll click on this light source and add my custom flare to it. Once added, the new flare will appear in the scene. That's how you export a flare to custom folder. Let's take a look at the custom folder itself. Inside, you'll find a JSON file, in this case, newben.json, that stores all the information about the flare, including how it's constructed. Alongside, you will find its icon file in WebP format. If either the JSON and the icon is missing or if the names don't match, Flared2 won't load the flare. These two elements must remain exactly as they are, so avoid manual edits. Creating another custom flare. Now I will delete the flare from the scene to create another custom flare, starting with the current one. This time I'll make some simple modifications, such as changing the color. Let me adjust this here for better visibility. I'll change this, this, and this. I can export this new version in the same way as before, naming it new Ben 2. If the name already exists, it will highlight in red. After confirming, I'll patiently wait while the preview render completes. Now the new flare appears in the same location exactly as it should. We now have 2 custom flares, more than enough for now. Next, I'll show you how to export all your custom flares in bulk. Select Export all custom flare as zip file from the menu. You'll be asked where to save the zip file. I'll choose my download folder, create a new subfolder, and confirm. A zip file containing all the custom flares will be generated in that location. Export complete. Let's check the export folder. Inside, there are two exported zip files. These files can be shared with a friend or uploaded online. Naturally, anyone you share them with will need Flare2 installed on their system to use the flares. Finally, let me demonstrate how to import preset in bulk from zip file. I'll start by forcibly deleting the files in the custom folder. Now I'll create a new scene. With the custom folder empty, there should no longer be any preset listed. Exactly. There's nothing left. At this point, I want to import the zip files into the custom folder. There's a minor issue we didn't anticipate. Accessing the setting panel can be tricky when there are no flare in the scene. I'm sorry about that. The panel is necessary for importing preset into the custom folder. So once we have a flare in the scene, we can open the menu and select import preset from a zip file. This feature also supports batch importing. Let's see. Yes, the files were successfully imported into the custom folder. The zip export is useful for creating a single portable file instead of managing the JSON file and its associated icons separately. However, when Flared2 imports them, it extracts the content back into the custom folder as JSON files and icons. That's it. There are still a few minor bug fixes with this new version, which you will find details on the changelog. The changelog will likely be available on our website or the Blender Market page or into the instruction. I have to choose where to put it. Always consult the instructions. They are critical and constantly updated. Each time we release a new version, the manual is revised to include fresh details, ensuring you have access to the most useful tips. We've received initial users' feedback alongside the first help request. Most of these relate to using Flared2 with cycles, as the render engine requires handling multiple transparency layers. Adjusting the transparency setting in the rendering engine is crucial, and this is explained well in the manual. For further details, refer to the Render Options section, particularly page 33, which outlines how to optimize rendering time in cycles when using Flared2. There is also a video on this channel. You can find it into this playlist called Flared2 on YouTube that shows how to use Flared2 with cycles and how to improve the rendering times. Thank you, everyone. We hope you find this update useful. Share your feedback with us. Feel free to reach out for any questions or support. We aim to address all issues and improve where needed. And if you can, leaving a positive rating on the Blender Market page helps sustain this project and grow the community. So enjoy your work and see you soon. Bye!